Welcome to your Wednesday-flavoured wrestling news. A little bit later on today, Jack is along with more news, including the potential return of a controversial wrestling star. Maybe. Absolutely not. Here for now, though, is your headlines. A new WWE Championship has been pitched. AEW addresses rumours around Bill Goldberg. And we have details on future NXT tapings. We'll get to them in a bit. How many championships are currently active in WWE? Can you tell me off the top of your head? You can't, can you? You're now having to think about it. You're now using all of your fingers to count how many are currently active. The Raw men's, the SmackDown men's, the Raw women's, the SmackDown women's, the Raw tag, the SmackDown tag, the US, the IC, the NXT North American, the NXT tag, the NXT Cruiserweight, 24/7. There's a lot in there. There's a lot. Can we fit one more? Can we just get one more in there? Have you got room for one more, like the championship desserts that it could possibly be? Well, according to Belt Fan Dan on Twitter, we may have to make a little bit of room for belt pudding. As according to Belt Fan Dan, quote, supposedly the idea of a Raw Underground Championship was pitched. Suggestions included it looking beat up like the hardcore belt with spray paint and simulated brick texturing. Now, Belt Fan Dan is actually a really good authority on this sort of thing. There's been several bits of news about championships that have been broken by Belt Fan Dan. So when he says that idea has been pitched, you can kind of take it to the bank. Now, there is a lot of championships currently in WWE, and arguably there isn't room for any more. But I want to play devil's advocate, if you don't mind. Thanks. It's annoying. I never have enough fireballs by the time I get to John Milton's office. Also, I want to put out the idea that WWE could benefit from a championship for Raw Underground. The one thing that Raw Underground is missing right now is that little bit of significance to it. It's just at the moment, wrestlers having worked shoot fights, and there's nothing to really compete for other than, I don't know, the love of Shane McMahon, I guess, when his handkerchief flutters to the ground. The championship matches commence, the winner gets a night and a day with him. I don't know. But the idea of having a championship for Raw Underground isn't a bad one. To have something there that people can fight for could be used as a device to get somebody over like Rover. Put that bad boy on Dabba Kato. Put it over his shoulder. Be a great look. Imagine him winning that Raw Underground Championship and then marching out to Raw and just clattering everybody with this belt thrown over his shoulder, calling out Drew McIntyre. That would be a thing. Yes, I am calling for a push straight to the moon of Dabba Kato. Shut up. That should be a thing that happens. Goldberg. Not my words, the words of Leonardo DiCaprio in Titanic: The Decadent Years. And the words of the fans of Billy G as he makes his way out to the ring to do some spearing. Goldberg has been on the front of the minds of wrestling fans over the last few hours, partly due to an interview that has surfaced from a few weeks ago, which we'll talk about in a second, and some comments made on Jim Cornette's podcast regarding Goldberg and AEW. So Cornette has suggested that Goldberg was one of those names that Cody and Tony Khan were keen to get into AEW when they were building the company. And it wasn't just they wanted Goldberg, they wanted one of the most lauded aspects of Goldberg as well, and that being the streak. Talk was that they wanted to bring Goldberg into All Elite Wrestling as the superstar of the company and have him replicate that streak from the late 90s in WCW and just have him mow through the entire roster. Several people went to Twitter and complained about this idea, saying it would have been terrible. One fan in particular offered up a list of the wrestlers that Goldberg would have had to trouse through in AEW as he was doing said streak. Cody responded to the fan in question here, replying to their tweet saying, "This isn't real. We had no contact. Ha." So there you go. Goldberg apparently not contacted by AEW at all. This is a bit of a rumor killer that Goldberg was going to be a part of AEW. But when it comes to Goldberg in WWE, his last wasn't his last. He did an interview recently on the Pop Culture Show that has come to light over the last few hours, where he talks about his current status with WWE. And Goldberg says, I am contracted with WWE for the next 2 years through 2022 and into 2023. I've got 2 matches per year, and I've exhausted my commitment quite early this year on April 5th with WrestleMania under these really weird circumstances. I've got some extremely interesting projects right now on the cusp, and as you guys know, in the entertainment business, right now everything is on hold. We've got a lot of cool things that people are going to find out about very soon. My WWE commitment is still going strong. I'm 53. I never would have imagined it, especially making fun of Flair for doing it in his early 40s. Goldberg ain't going anywhere in WWE. Now, Goldberg, I still think, can be an asset to WWE. Paul Heyman talks about using Goldberg as kind of a superhero for Monday Night Raw, like a special attraction, like a modern-day Bruno Sammartino, somebody who just comes in and rights the wrongs and leaves again. And I don't mind the idea of Goldberg being that kind of character. Just don't want him being thrown into the title chase unnecessarily, because I feel like it undid a lot of hard work in the main event scene of SmackDown. So whilst I don't begrudge him coming back, I don't want him involved in anything super major when it comes to stories. Former NXT star Dan Mather is in the news today following his arrest on Monday. Now, this comes from Wrestling Inc. They say Dan Mather was arrested in Orlando for failing to appear in court. It wasn't initially clear as to what he was going to court for, but the guys at heelbynature.com have cleared that up and showed some of the court's arrest record, and turns out he was going to court because of a traffic violation, and he didn't attend the hearing for said violation, and now he's been arrested. So if you're hearing stuff about a former WWE guy being arrested today, that's what it's all about. It's a traffic violation. Don't know any more about it right now, but of course, when we know more, we'll stick it on Cultaholic.com. Impact Wrestling began their 2-week special emergence last night. A couple of notes from that show. Rohit Raju won his first ever X Division Championship last night, defeating Chris Bay and TJP in a triple threat match. Really cool match with those guys that is worth checking out. We saw EC3 attacking Moose and stealing the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Heath still trying to get a job within the company. He bought some ad space during the show to try and push the hashtag Heath for Impact, which was quite cool. And we saw Good Brothers in action against Ace Austin and Madman Fulton. Motor City Machine Guns defended their titles against the North. Next week, the show continues, and we have a bit of a first on Impact Wrestling. Now, when we think the Iron Man match in the women's divisions, of course, we go to Bayley and Sasha Banks. Deonna Purrazzo and Jordynne Grace set to make their own history when they have a 30-minute Iron Man match for the Impact Knockouts Championship. The first time the Knockouts Championship has been defended in that way in its history, and that match goes down next week. I'm really, really hyped to see that. Jordynne Grace is having the time of her career right now as part of Impact Wrestling. Like, she's doing some of her best stuff. She's grafting more than she ever has. And to Deonna Purrazzo, she is at a point where she is proving the naysayers from the other company wrong in everything that she is doing in Impact Wrestling. So these two have a chance to absolutely steal the show next week. We can't go without talking about the ThunderDome. I'm not going to sing, don't worry. People got very sad and very cross last time I did. The ThunderDome is coming on Friday, and the reaction to not just the ThunderDome, but the move to Amway Center has been pretty positive in the WWE locker room. According to Fightful Select, they have some details about NXT, which we're going to get to in just a second. But when it comes to the locker room, Fightful Select also offer a little bit of insight into how they're doing, and it looks as if it's unanimously positive. Everybody feels like this is a refresher that the show really needs right now. Partly because these shows at Amway are going to be filmed live. So they're not going to have these big blocks of tapings to go to anymore that weren't finishing till like 2 o'clock in the morning. So there's a relief from some of the roster that when they go to shows, they will go to live shows and have the live shows and then they'll be done for the week. I think it means a bit more traveling, though, I would imagine. But apart from that, there's generally quite a nice feeling about the shows at Amway. Vince McMahon's really delighted as well. In fact, Vince McMahon, according to WrestlingNews.co and the sources that have contacted them, is in a great place. One source said, Vince feels like the worst is over and he feels the company can get back to where things were before the virus came along. The virus is still out there. He has been in a great mood ever since they locked in the contract with Amway Center. Another source has said Vince thinks it might take a few weeks to get the fans back that they lost, but they realise we are out of the Performance Center and they see how cool the shows look. They will be back. He thinks the numbers can get back to where they were in February and early March. Now, what does the move to Amway and the ThunderDome mean for NXT? Are we going to see big production NXT on a Wednesday night? The answer is no. Fightful Select have said that whilst Raw and SmackDown will be emanating from Amway on a weekly basis, NXT will continue its current schedule at Full Sail University. And it's a strange decision to do that. I guess it might come down to cost. Maybe they've got a long-term deal with Full Sail that if they just don't, they've got a relationship and a commitment with Full Sail as well that they don't want to burn by leaving there. Also, it's that idea, and it's the constant back and forth of whether or not NXT is really the third brand or whether it is a developmental brand. And I guess if you're going to put all this glitz and glamour onto Raw and SmackDown, it makes NXT look like a smaller brand once again. We will see how long that lasts before. We may even see just a general push in the production for NXT going forward to maybe try and match some of the stuff that they're doing at Amway. We will find out. But what we do know is that Full Sail remains the home of NXT for the time being. NXT back on tonight as we get set for TakeOver 30. You and I will catch up all about NXT tomorrow here on the Cultaholic YouTube channel for NXT Graded. 30 is this Saturday. We'll see how they go home for 30. Stay safe. Love you. Bye.